Good afternoon. I am Sensei Kevlar. I am here to talk to you today about more automation. Last time when we talked about automation, we talked about the process of breaking down your strategy into a set of conditionals. And I sort of wrote some pseudocode on the screen in order to demonstrate this idea that we can break down an idea into conditionals. Up until now, we've been really focused on building plans and testing those plans. And we've been doing things like drawing our profit line, sort of on our own here, and then computing our percentages based upon, you know, pulling on down these things. And sort of this is a manual process of figuring out, this is 10% below here, and if we're on the 4,500 line, that would be that right there. Um, this is a very manual process, and it's incredibly important that you understand this process, that you understand that when you buy lower, this drags your position down, which allows you more opportunity on the upside. And when you sell, you can think of this as doing the exact opposite, where it's coming up, and now you can think of this as dragging your position up in exactly the same way. So the way that this works is that what we can do is we can take our strategy, break it down into conditional statements, and then make for more automation around this idea. So what is the first thing that we want to automate? Well, what we've been talking about doing over and over and over again is thinking about where we are in the market and thinking about what percentages we want to be buying and selling at based upon that, because these inform our schedules, and these also are informed by other factors like this. So if we want to see 10% opportunity on this right here, well, that would look like this right here, about 10%, right? So if we wanted to sort of do a more automated version of this measuring and constantly doing this very manual process, if we want to be able to automate this, take our strategy and say we want to sell when it gets above 10, and we want to buy when it gets below 10%. There's an opportunity to do this with automation. So here's how this looks, is if you come down here, there's a little thing right here. You can grab it if it wants me to grab it. There we go. Click on that. And you come over here to the Pine editor. And what the Pine editor is it allows you to, I'm just going to do a new blank strategy. Say yes. I'm just going to get rid of this. What a strategy allows you to do is it allows you to automate a set of conditions and then have those conditions displayed on your chart in a visual way. And it's a very intuitive language that we use, that once you get used to it, there's a slight learning curve associated with learning any new language. And like learning any new skill, this is very much about practicing. It's about using the verbiage to change your thinking. It's about getting the muscle. It's about building the muscle memory around these ideas. It's about becoming familiar. Doing total immersion is a great opportunity. If you just start thinking and speaking in that language and constantly exposing yourself to it, then you will start picking up and using those words and using those ideas in your normal vocabulary. So the way all of these start out is always the same. This is a convention, and you have to specify what version of Pine script you're using, and I'm using version 2. There's a version 3, and your sensei is just a little old on these matters and hasn't quite gotten up to date on all of the latest technology. It really doesn't change that much from one version to the next. You can basically use the same ideas across the board. So in order to define, there's a couple different ways that we can think about this. We can think about this in terms of a study, and a study is just a way of looking at something. But a strategy is actually more powerful. A strategy is this idea that we're going to take our strategy and express it in terms of a set of conditional statements. So we start by saying to the Pine editor that we're going to build a strategy, and then we give our strategy a name, and we're going to call this our percent strategy. And then we want this to overlay on the chart. We want to do some visuals on the chart to show us what our percentages are. And we can say overlay equals true. And this sets us up for writing our strategy. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to define in our strategy what our position is. Remember, we're pivoting around our position. This is our break-even point. We're dragging it down when we do our buys. We're dragging it up when we do our sells. And so let's say that right now we go and we look and we've done our planning and we've done our buying and we've done our selling when we computed our position. And our position in the market is $4,400. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to define what we call a variable. And a variable is just a location for a value to be stored. And when we store that value, the computer remembers that value for us. So I'm going to call this variable my position. And this is me just defining an arbitrary name for a concept that I want the computer to know about. And I'm going to go ahead and tell the computer that this arbitrary name, which I'm calling my position, I just made up that word, I'm going to say that that position is equal to 4,400, okay? At this point, the computer knows that whenever I talk about my position, I use this keyword, I've now defined this keyword to the computer, what I really mean is I really mean the number 4,400, okay? And what this allows us to do is this allows us to do maths and other interesting things on this, and I'll sort of get to that in just one second. So we're going to start, we're going to say my position is 4,400. Then we're going to define our conditionals. Our conditionals are when the current closing price of the market is below 10% of our position, then we want to buy at this time. When the current closing price is above 10% of our position, we want to sell at this time. So we're going to write those conditionals just as I said them. We're going to say if the closing price of our position, the closing price is less than our position, and then from our position, we need to subtract 10%. Okay, so this is where the math comes in. What we're going to do is we're going to say this is a comparison on the left-hand side here. We're comparing close against our position, but from our position, we first need to subtract 10% from our position. So in order to subtract 10% from our position, we say we want to subtract, and now what we need to do is we need to compute what 10% of our position would be. That is, again, position times 0.1, 10%. Okay? This equation computes 10% of our position. Let's pull up our calculator. If we have 4,400 and we say multiply that, this is multiply right here, by 0.1, then we have 4,400. So if we have our position, and then we subtract, and our position is 4,400, and we subtract from that 440, well, let's do the math. 4,400 minus 440, which is what I computed on this side right here. 4,400 minus 440 is equal to 3,960. Okay, so when we reach 3,960, what we want to do is we want to say strategy, an entry position, and we want to buy. And this is telling us that we want to go strategy. We want to go on a long position. So at this point, what we've done is we've said, if the close position is less than 10% of our position, we want to buy. We want to go long on our strategy, and we want to say buy right here and go long on our strategy. Otherwise, if the close of the position is greater than our position, and we need to add to that 10% of our position, it's the same equation, okay? Here we're subtracting 10% of our position from our position. Here we're adding 10% of our position to our position. And if our close is greater than that, then we want to do a sell, and this is a strategy. Short. We're going to call this, we're going to hit save, and we're going to call this our pivot strategy, because what we're doing is we're pivoting above and below our position at the 10% mark. Okay. Then what we do, and this is the magic right here, is we add this to the chart. Now, I couldn't have planned that much. I couldn't have planned that if I tried. What happened here? For every candle, we are going to run this script. For every candle value, we're going to say, run the script. And if this happens, if we encounter this condition, then what we're going to do is we're going to, here we encountered this condition, and what we're going to do is we're going to put a buy signal right there for us. Buy, 2 positions. And because I updated what it is I'm telling you to buy, the label updated here of what we're being told to buy. In the opposite manner, when we did the math for this particular candle and we plugged those values in to the script on this particular candle, what happened is we encountered this condition and we went short. Now, here's the really cool part about all of this, is once we have automated the buying and selling according to our strategy, we can come over here to the strategy tester, and the strategy tester will do the automated buying and selling for us in the past. And it will tell us what our actual performance on the strategy would have been if we had historically been trading the strategy. Now, obviously, this particular strategy is good for this situation right here. And it would have been good if we were doing something a little bit more clever, like following, like actually tracking our, plugging in our spreadsheet from the past about where our positions were, and then we could say on this date our position was here, and we bought or we sold. But this is a lagging indicator. This is looking back in the past and looking what we should have done in the past, right? What we're really much more interested in is looking forward and having this tell us if our position is here, well, it's not time to sell yet, and it's not time to buy yet. We should have bought down here, and that should have been our signal. And this is what I'm driving at, is what we've done is we've taken our indicator. Our indicator says when we are in this conditional, then we have indicated that this is true. According to our strategy, when this indicator signals, then we will perform this action. We've taken our indicator, we've turned it into a signal for our strategy. This is the basis of signal authoring. Is the idea is that we can take our strategy, turn it into a signal, and then automate that signal. Now, would this work? Yeah, absolutely. If we were going to hook this up to our Forex account or hook this up to our exchange account, could we just automate this signal? Absolutely. But then what we would need to do is we'd need to come in here, and every time the signal went off and the buy order or the sell order went in an automated fashion, put it into the exchange by the automation, we'd need to come in here and we need to adjust our position manually. So this is fine for your first step. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get your feet wet and see how the strategy might have changed if instead of 10%, you had targeted 8% on this side and 8% on this side. Where might that have moved our buy position? You can see our buy position moved from here to here. If we were targeting 5% of profit on the sell side, where might we have sold? We might have sold earlier. If we were targeting 15% on the sell side, we might not have even gotten our sell off, and that would also be indicated by our strategy. So what we're seeing here is this progression where we can automate our strategy and then tell the computer to go ahead and test our strategy in the past. Now, as I'm saying, this value right here, well, it's not very dynamic, right? It's not really a good indicator of, it's not really a good way of following the market. What we want to do is we want to be able to take something like the RSI or the MACD and use that indicator in order to build a signal which informs when it might be a good time to buy or it might be a good time to sell. So, can we do that? I think we probably can. The idea here is what we want to do is we want to take advantage of the fact that when the RSI goes in a certain direction or it goes in another direction, let's pull up the RSI really quick instead of just talking about this in the abstract. The relative strength index. Okay. What we want to use for our signal on something like a 4-hour chart, let's say, is we want to use an indicator. We want to have an indicator that signals us that we should be looking to sell when the RSI crosses above and then goes below. Because what that's signaling is that's signaling a trend reversal. When we go above and then cross below the 70% line right here on the RSI, this is our signal that we should be selling on the because what we've done is we've come up all that we're going to come up, and now the RSI is telling us it's time for a return to the norm, and then we can come back down here and do some more allocation back down here. Likewise, when it crosses below the 20 mark and then crosses back above, that should also signal a trend reversal on the downside. So according to our classic RSI signal, what we want to do is we want to think about this in terms of, remember if we want to compute the RSI, what we do is we would take a window, and a good window for an RSI is something like 12 bars back on a 4-hour chart. Let's use that for an example. So we'll say our back window is equal to the input, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the input of the last 12 bars back from where, so we're going to run this script on every single candle and compute one of these, and we're going to do that by looking 12 bars back from here. So on this candle, we're going to look 12 bars back. On this candle, we're going to look 12 bars back. Over here on this candle, we're going to look 12 bars back. And this will be those 12 bars. And say we're going to give it a min value so it doesn't crash down. And that will be 1. Shouldn't be necessary, but it is necessary when you have charts that go to 0 or other problems like that. Then we're going to say that our oversold is also an input. And this is a 30 window. And our overbought is an input. And this is our 70. So we're going 30 above and 70 below. Min value equals 1. Finally, what we need to do is we need a way of saying when we have come above and then gone below again. So we're going to call this the reversal. And the way that the reversal works is the reversal is an input. And the way we want our input to work is we want it to be a Boolean logic value. Boolean logic is true or it is false. It's one or the other. So we're going to start out without having reverse. We're going to say we did not start out with a reversal. And then when we go above, we're going to say that the reversal is possible. And then when we go below, if the reversal has occurred, then this will be our signal. So if we want to make sure that, if we see a crossing and the reversal hasn't happened yet, this will be our move above. We're going to assume that we're going to start in the middle, and then going above or below will cause reversal to become true, and then going above or below, when reversal is true, means that this is our signal, because we're looking for the cross above followed by the cross below. So we're going to give this a title, trend reversal. We've set up all of our inputs. We have everything that we need. What we need to do now is compute the actual RSI. Say actual RSI is equal to, they have a built-in RSI for us. This is where the magic sort of happens for us. If you don't know what the RSI is, you wouldn't know to use the RSI. But since you know what the RSI is, what we can do is we can say we want the RSI using the close, and we're going to put that into our back window using our back window. So what this will do is this will compute the RSI on the close and put that into our back window input. So now our back window is effectively our RSI, the past 12 of the RSI using the past 12 windows. Okay, that's what the RSI is the RSI using the past 12 windows. Now what we're going to do, so this is this number right here. This is 77, or this is 84, or this is 86, or whatever it is. Based upon the past 12 windows, we're going to do the computation for the RSI. Next, what we need to do is we need to figure out if we're doing a crossing above or a crossing below. So what that looks like is we say our position is now moving. This is the position of the RSI. This is a new function. This is called if and only if, and if and only if takes three parameters that you pass it. The first parameter is a condition. Like when we're writing a normal if statement and you put your condition from your strategy into your if statement, the if and only if is a way of doing something when this condition is true and something else when the condition is false. Again, we're coming back to the Boolean logic. So we're going to say our condition is that our actual RSI is greater than our overbought. When that's true, then our position is going to be equal to 1 to signal that we're going above. If that is not true, then we need another condition, because the possibility is that instead of going above, it could be going below. So let's do that. We're going to do if and only if. And again, the condition is actual RSI is less than oversold, like we were saying. If it's less than oversold, then we want to go -1. We want to go +1 if it's moving above. We want to go -1 if it's moving below. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to use the previous position, which is the one before, as our indicator. So we're just going to keep it. We're going to keep the value if we don't have either overbought or oversold. It's just going to stay what it was. If it went overbought, it's going to stay overbought. If it went oversold, it's going to stay oversold. And that could be not a number or not 0. And so in the case where it's not 0, because we don't have a value yet, because we're too far back in the chart here, and we haven't imputed a value for the past yet, in that case, when we don't have a previous value, then we'll say we're not going to signal yet. This is how we start. This is the starting condition of 0. And if our RSI moves above the overbought, which is 70, then our position becomes a positive integer. And if it moves below the oversold, it becomes a negative integer. Now, position is equal to 1. At the end of this equation, position is equal to one of three values. Either it's 1 if we moved above overbought, if we're overbought, or it's -1 if we're below oversold, or it's the previous value, or 0. Next, what we want to do now is we want to, based upon our position, we want to create our signal. Our signal is, again, a set of conditions. Because what we said before is we want it to first go above and then cross below. So how do we do that? Well, this is where the reverse comes in. Is if and only if reverse is true and position is equal to 1. Okay, we haven't gotten to what would set reverse yet, but we will in just 1 second. Stop and think. If we reverse and position is equal to 1, then what we want to do is we want to say it's time to sell, -1. Otherwise, again, the opposite could be true. If reverse and position is equal to -1, this means we want to now buy. Otherwise, we will just use whatever position we're currently in. If we're in a position already, if we're in a buy position already, we'll stay in a buy position. If we're in a sell position already, we will stay in a sell position. Otherwise, we will come And upon moving above and then moving below, got to use the actual keyword here, then we will signal. Finally, now that we have set up our signal, the final step is to actually do the strategy. Works the same way. If our signal is 1, like we said, that means it's time to buy. Gonna take a look, buy. Otherwise, if our signal is equal to -1, okay? So, if we were in a reversal and our RSI was overbought, then our signal goes to sell. Otherwise, if we're in a reversal and our signal went to oversold, then we went to buy. Otherwise, we're going to stick with what we presently have, and we're going to stay in there. Did I do it right? I really hope I did this right. Got really close, I'm sure. It's telling me that end of line without line continuation. I probably messed up my, yeah, one more, I think. Reverse and reverse is equal to -1 and position. Did I do it here too? A viable alternative at input position. Let me just puzzle through this 1 second. This is what I was afraid of. Always a live coding demo, and these are always how they go. Yeah, it's too many right there for sure. Did I misspell position? Position. Nothing. Oh, right there. There's the problem right there. I want to do a comparison here. I don't want to do an assignment. And why are you not happy? Did it there. Oh, I must have screwed up something here. Wow. All right. Well, debug this thing. Ah, I screwed up this. Oh, I know why. It's not min value, it's min val. So, I mean, these things are really tricky like that, and you just gotta really familiarize yourself with the language and spend a lot of time. There we go. And spend a lot of time working out. Why can you not compile? Working out the errors, figuring out what it is that you're doing wrong. I was working from my example, and I seem to have screwed it up, so I'm going to cheat now in the interest of making this correct. And I still can't pull it off. Happens every time, doesn't it? You go to do a demo, and I tested this last night. Well, that's embarrassing. If this had worked, what you would have seen is you would have seen this really nice, beautiful, let's try this one more time. We're going to save, let's do new, blank strategy script. There it goes. I don't know what I was doing wrong before. Going back to the code, it's the code we just wrote, and I somehow screwed it up, and I don't know what I did wrong, but it's the code we just wrote. The point here is that when the RSI signaled for us, it automatically, here the RSI signaled for us, here the RSI signaled for us, we said, you know, here it said, this is, we've gone too low, and I think what we probably did is we probably screwed this up, we probably reversed them. We did. We wanted to do a short here and a long here. There we go. That's better. And then we'll make this green, and we'll make this red. And what this is doing is this is coloring the individual bars. There. Yeah, the short didn't exactly work very well right there. And this is what this is telling us, right? Is here the short worked correctly when we went above and we entered the short. And here the signal worked out well. Here it worked out okay. Here it worked out less well. Is we were constantly going above and above and above and above. And if we were just doing this in a blind fashion, look at what would have happened. If we were just paying attention to the RSI, well, our automation told us that this was a bad strategy. By backtesting our strategy before going into the market with it, we now know that we should not program our bot to just use the RSI in these market conditions. Now, would this have worked better in different market conditions? Almost assuredly. Right here, we're probably going to get, you know, a lot of spikes down here, and then we can get some quick opportunities up on the upside. But the point is that what you want to do is you want to be able to sit here and tune this. What if we kept ourselves out of them by going to 35 instead of 30? Does that improve our strategy? Well, we can actually find out really easy. You see, our strategy tester tells us what our net profit is. It actually tells you what the buy and hold return would have been, what your max drawdown was. All of the different aspects of the performance of this strategy are included right here in your performance report. And all it does is it goes back and it tries to execute your strategy for you in an automated fashion. Now, if you've got a strategy and you want to program your bot with it, and then you want to see if that strategy would have made you profitable, well, one way is to turn on your bot and have that bot march you forward with that strategy and then see if you're profitable. Another way is to come down here, program the strategy, plug in the strategy, and then see how you would have done historically. We can see historically, blindly following this RSI might have been a bad idea in this market. And, you know, so it would have worked out well here, where, you know, the dip came down and we bought the dip on the RSI indicator right there, RSI going below 35, but we needed something that kept us out of these shorts. So now what we want to do is we want to go back and improve our strategy. Improve our strategy such that it makes us more profitable long term. And when we can sit here and we can include the MACD, Maybe the MACD wasn't crossing over. Maybe, we bring in a Fibonacci retracement and compute the Fibonacci retracement on this. We figure out what the golden mean is. We sit here and we do the math right here on every single bar using this value and then using as many values back as we want. And then we can compute and display right here on the chart what it is we would have done. And then we can have the automation go back and test that strategy moving backwards. This is a really, 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 really crucial tool. This will tell you if following the RSI in this market was such a good idea after all. Maybe it wasn't on this chart. Maybe it would have worked out better on the 2-hour chart. Or you know what it might have worked out really well on is the 1-week chart, right? This is the the 1-day chart, for instance. Okay, here we come down and we enter a long position. Here we get too high. See, it's still not working out too well, but it's certainly working out better. And historically, it definitely probably would have worked out better. And this is the part that I really want to call your attention to. Is if you test a strategy and it works out really, really, really well in a particular set of market conditions like these right here, it worked out really, really well in the past. Here we were neutral. We need to pull in some more bars or something. And we went long, and then we went short, and then we were able to tune our strategy by sitting here and modifying the strategy and tuning it and adding more conditions in order to get our strategy to tell us to go long right here. And then we were modifying our strategy, and we brought in the MACD, and the MACD, or the RSI, told us we should have been, which we should have been shorting here, okay? At this point, what we can do is we can absolutely continue to modify our strategy and test it in different market conditions. And what I'm going to tell you is the following: as your sensei, as your teacher, as the voice of experience ringing in your ears. I don't care how finely tuned you make this automation strategy. It doesn't matter how incredibly well performant you create your signal to be. Your signal is only as good as the plan that backs it. If you are sitting here and you are blindly trading an automated signal, and you're not using a plan to schedule your allocation and your distribution against that signal, you're doing it wrong. Signals are what keep us out of the market. They allow us to enter the market safely and sanely. They absolutely provide us with the insight that we need in order to automate our tools. And with signals, our tools and our automation can become much, 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 much more powerful, because we can do automated backtesting of our strategy. We can automate the profitability testing and ensure that we are maximizing our profitability given our strategy. Backtesting is the most important aspect of automation. And when you're doing automation, planning is the most important aspect of how you accomplish that automation. Your automation should be automating your plan. You should be doing your automation, and you should have your plan set up such that your plan says that your buy-in is down here, but your automation says, not yet. Not yet. I'm waiting for the RSI to come down, and then if it's time to schedule my buy, then I will go ahead and let my buy occur. My signal told me when my plan needed to change. And I can automate that, but it needs to start with the plan. It needs to start with you saying, my buy is going to occur here. And then that is the worst case scenario. We can improve upon the worst case scenario by bringing in more signals. Signals make the plan better, but it starts with the plan. And if you don't start with the plan, then you can't plan the trade according to your signals. And that is the way of the trader. Thank you very much.